Good evening, and thanks for tuning in this evening. And thanks very much to Roz and Simon Lewis for setting up this holding cell. It's a great opportunity for distraction for both readers and hopefully listeners. In these uncertain times. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to read you five poems, starting off with a couple of, I suppose, memory poems. Sort of vague memory poems, I would say, because the first one is when we were in I suppose it would have been in the 60s, we spent a lot of summers in places like Cortown and Ardamine and Palchone. And I have a vague recollection of watching the 1966 World Cup final on Palchone Beach, in a house in Palchone Beach. So, World Cup final 1966, Palchone Beach for Terry. We watched on the bulging screen of a Bush television, set in the corner of a dark afternoon living room that smelled of salad and sea. Our cousin's clapboard holiday home, marine blue, shutters closed against the sun. We sat silently on the floor between the legs of grown-ups who talked as they passed sandwiches around. At full time, we burst blinking into the light to replay the goals and imitate our heroes. Being slightly older, my brother had first pick, so chose Geoff Hurst, and then took permanent possession of the ball, while I, a 9-year-old in salt-bleached hair, who pictured himself as Siggy held, reluctantly went in goal, and between shots cast a furtive eye on the scorched path, twisting down, hoping to catch a glimpse of the girl in the blue summer dress. Second poem is a kind of a school day poem, and I think we'd all sort of relate to something like this. Free class. On the day our teacher was sick, the principal, with a misplaced belief in our maturity, suggested we revise quietly for exams and pull the door, leaving us to a short-lived silence, atmosphere nervous and tight, ready to be breached. We picked on the quietest boy, pushed him to the top of the class, and goaded him to imitate the teacher, the way he might stalk the room, chalk in mouth, duster primed. During his hesitation, we laughed at his first attempt, paper planes like locusts now shadowing the light. He stuttered and started to cry, a low whimper at first, followed by full-blown tears. Caught in the nexus of embarrassment and panic, we bundled him back down to his desk. A cloud of regret settled on the room. Everybody avoided eye contact until a suppressed giggle at the back rippled like a gathering wave through the class, and the room erupted again, as though the noise could distract our guilt. When the bell rang, we rushed for the door, half-open school bags stuffed under our arms. That summer, he was taken out of school and his family moved away. I never saw him again until today. Coming out of a shop on Capel Street, our eyes met in clear recognition. He turned his head and walked on. The next poem is kind of loosely based on inspired by a story. My uncle, my father's family lived in Belfast in Ardoyne, and my uncle probably would have been in the 1920s when he was a boy. He kept chickens for a while in a small house on Chief Street in Ardoyne, and this kind of came out of it. Still dreaming of Livorno. When I was 7, I acquired my first chicken. a black Italian leghorn, stolen under cover of darkness from the coop at the end of a neighbour's garden, and secreted in a wicker basket under the bed. As I slipped its first egg into the fridge, I remarked to my mother how I'd been woken by a noisy skiffle from the henhouse next door, followed by the plaintive cry of a fox, taking care to quickly dismiss an errant feather from my school jumper. Some days later, when I felt the coast was clear, me home. She settled in quickly, sitting beside me on the couch, while I watched cartoons, Aardman reruns, scratching industriously around the schoolyard, and even nestling on a windowsill, listening intently as the teacher discussed questions of causality, origin, and sequence. And every day, a single white egg. Until 3 weeks in, I found her watching an episode of Countryfile on the pros and cons of battery farming, and her rhythm stumbled. Her eyes grew cold. She skipped her daily dust bath and passed the time staring at the sky. One morning, I woke to find her bed empty, save for one last egg, sad face emoji etched on the shell. I suppose I have an interest in kind of the mystery of everyday life and the kind of the things that we take for granted. Coming home. One day the key doesn't turn in the lock, and he wonders if he has done something wrong, if there is something different about his approach, the way he inserted the key, the way he turned it with that customary wiggle, assuming it would open. He tries again, confidence draining with each attempt, and all the little assumptions built into his process seem shaky. The nerves in his fingers, so used to success, now expect failure. Could it be the wrong key? He pats his pockets, finds nothing but a comb and a train ticket, stands in silence on the doorstep, as though waiting for someone to open the door. There should be no one home, yet he listens for the slightest tremble of sound. And when he calls to a neighbour to borrow a spare, a stranger answers, explains how nobody has lived there for years. And the final one is, I suppose, an allegorical tale, maybe, just inspired by walking around Howth Head. The Mermaid and the Lighthouse Keeper. 3 weeks after the gorse fire, he notices fresh growth among the stubble, fingers of green clawing through the embers. And when a summer squall whips like a scarf around the hill, the spines brighten and the grey ash darkens with rain, forms runnels down the incline, across the walking trail, dispersing into the capillaries of the earth below. After many years of hiking alone on the cliff path, he knows that the flowers will soon appear, flaring yellow to the fishermen dropping lobster pots in the bay. When they're at their brightest, he will gather enough to make a lavish hand tie, wrap them in stalks of lavender from the kitchen garden, and leave them on the small outcrop of rock below the station, beside the metal struts of the old diving board. He saw her there, that single time, stretched on a ledge above the foaming sea, eyes dazzled by the sweeping beam. So thanks very much for tuning in this evening, and thanks again to Roz and Simon and Please stay safe. Thank you.